everybody, Adrienne here, and today I want to come to you with an update of my 2019 low buy, how it turned out. I just wanted to let you guys know if I was successful at keeping it and what products I purchased throughout the year. So starting off with the first palette that I purchased for my low buy, it is the Ace Beauté Classical Paradise palette. This one I purchased in February. During the month of January, I decided that I wasn't going to buy any palettes at all and that I would just keep that palette stashed in case there was a month where I wanted to purchase two palettes. So February was the very first month that I purchased a palette, and this is what the palette looks like on the inside. I have not filmed any videos or tutorials on this palette. I got it because at that time last year, reds were just starting to become really popular and there weren't a lot of palettes that had a lot of good reds in them, and this one had 3. So this is why I really wanted this palette, and this pukey shade here and the yellow shade looked interesting to me. So I'll have to get back to you guys on what I thought of some of these palettes and doing reviews and first impressions and things like that of them. I'm not going to do that right now. I'll tell you why I did choose to purchase them, but I'll save the reviews for later. And I said that was the month of February, so March was the next month, and I got the C Color Cosmetics Around the World palette, and it is a dupe for the Urban Decay. I think it's Born on the Run or whatever it is. I'm not really sure. I don't buy from Urban Decay, but this is the palette, and like I said, it is a dupe, so it looks exactly like that other palette. And I debated on getting this palette for probably 5 to 6 months. So this was a palette that I really wanted and thought would be a good core palette to have in my collection with some darker metallic shades for lid shades, since I do like those a lot. And that was, let's see, January, February, March, so the month of April. I almost skipped out on the palette. This palette, it was from ColourPop. It is the Proceed with Caution palette from Makeup Shayla. And I do have a review of this palette with 3 different looks in it. If you're interested in seeing that, I'll post a link above up here so you can click on that and watch it. This is what the outer packaging looks like to that palette. And opening the inside of it, it is a 9-pan palette, which is my favorite. I liked it because it has so much variety in the look. The yellow, of course, was one of the most attention-catching things about this palette for me. But I like the red transition shade also, a reddish brown instead of an orangish brown transition shade. And then I did like these warm metallics over here, what they look like on me, so that is why I purchased that palette. And I'll have to keep saying the months over and over. So that's February, March, April, so now we're going on to May. And for May's palette, I bought my first Certify palette, and it is the Dream Without Fear, Love Without Limits. It's the Certify Affinity 2 palette. I have not had a chance to use this palette, and I had to pre-order it, so I waited 2 months to get it, and that was a little rough with being on a no-buy. But this is what the inside of that palette looks like, and I like it because it's green and blue. I don't really understand why they put the pop of purple in there, but when I look at it, it's almost like having each of them broken into an individual 9-pan palette. If you look at it right at the midpoint of it, it's like the blue is like in a 9-pan palette and the green's in a 9-pan palette. So I can't wait to try that one out and see what it's like. So that was February, March, April, and May's palette was another ColourPop palette, and it was the Main Squeeze palette. Like I said, I was loving red eyeshadows, so when they came out with this, let me show you the outside packaging in case you haven't seen it, this gorgeous monochromatic palette, I knew I had to have it. This is what the inside of it looks like, and I've used it twice. Got to wear it on the 4th of July, so that's why I wanted this palette. And loving the 9-pan palettes, this was great to be able to have something so condensed. So that was February, March, April, May, and then we got to June. And June's palette was a Juvia's Place palette. It's the Nubian 3, the Coral palette. I was really curious about this palette, like I'm sure a lot of other people were, because of the different silvers and grays in the palette. I wanted to see how all this would work together with the coral, and I just felt it was a different spin on it. And having this brown shade here and the browns that were in here, it wasn't the typical neon type coral. It looked a little more interesting to me, just the color combination of it, and I didn't really know what to think of how this color would go with coral shade. So the palette looked interesting overall with me. So this was June's palette. And then we got into July. July's palette was the Huda Beauty, the Topaz Obsession palette. I'd been wanting this since her Topaz collection released, but I never picked it up. And it is a 9-pan palette. I like this one because it's not just your regular warm tone, but I call this color macaroni and cheese. It reminds me of Kraft macaroni and cheese. I don't know why. I like that particular yellow in the palette, and it put a different spin on the palette instead of just being a warm tone brown palette, which you do have your orangish warm brown shades, which if you guys have been watching my channel for any length of time, you know that I typically don't like those colors. And it's not that I don't like them. I love them when they're in a palette like this, and I know that's the look that I'm going to be getting. But with having the hooded eyes, when these colors sneak up on me and I'm not trying for a warm brown look, it turns the whole look warm brown whether I want it or not. But this one, once I swatched the metallic shades in Sephora, I knew I had to have it. So this is the palette that I picked up for July. And remember, I didn't pick up a January palette, so I had one extra palette that I could get. Well, during the month of July, that's when this released, the Jackie Aina, ABH Jackie Aina collab. So of course I had to have this palette. So this was my second palette, which meant I couldn't buy any more, have any more months where I bought 2 palettes in the same month. So I chose to get this palette, and I was very happy with it. So for the month of July, I had the Jackie Aina palette and the Huda Beauty Topaz palette. And then ABH decided to go ahead and release more palettes. So the Norvina palette came out next. Well, I really thought I wanted this palette once I saw it instantly. As soon as I saw this palette, I wanted it. And I think it released like a week and a half or not more than 2 weeks after Jackie's palette. Whatever it was, I thought the palette released pretty close to when I'd gotten the Jackie Aina palette. So this is what this palette looks like on the inside if you haven't already seen it, which I'm sure since it's been out for 6 months or so, everybody's seen what the inside of this palette looks like. And of course I like the purple tones in here, but one of my favorite palettes is the Huda Beauty's Amethyst Obsession palette. And if you haven't seen me rank my 10 palette video that just got released in the last week or so, I'll post a link to it above. So some of these palettes I may be talking about a little more in depth if you want to watch that. But I didn't really think that I wanted it for the purple shades because I do love that Amethyst Obsessions palette, but there were some other pops of things in here that I thought was really interesting. And what made me buy this palette was ultimately this shade here. And it looks so peachy to me that I got excited about it, because a lot of times peach tone shades, if they have too much orange in them, they just pull gold on my skin tone. So I thought maybe this would work as a pure peach, so I had to have the palette. And I like that it had a red in here and this purplish blue metallic shade, and I like this matte blue. It's not really a matte blue, it's kind of a glittery blue, and some of the other pops in here. So I knew the purple, I really wanted these crease colors here too, these different takes on a brown, like reddish brown. I knew, I could tell from the pictures that these were reddish brown crease shades, so I wanted the palette for that more than just the purple. So I went ahead and got this palette, and then ABH turned around September 26th and they released the other 2 Norvina palettes the same day. I was trying not to buy any more palettes at all because I wanted to wait until Black Friday and pick up a bunch of other palettes that I wanted from ColourPop. I knew there were several palettes that I wanted to get from ColourPop and some other things that I wanted to get on the Black Friday sale. So my goal was not to buy more palettes and go over, but to just hold off for about 3 months so that I could order all those palettes and not go over. Well, once the Norvina palettes came out, the second release, the second and third one, I really wanted the third one, and I held off for a month or so after it released before I finally decided to go ahead and get it. So I said that I picked this one up in August, And in September, I didn't pick up a palette at all. I held off like I was supposed to and didn't get one because I was waiting for the Black Friday sale. But towards the end of October, I decided that I wanted this third Norvina palette. So I signed up to receive text messages from the ABH website, and I got a discount on it, and I want to say I didn't pay the $64 for it. I paid like $54, but I'm sure you've seen the inside of this palette also. This is what I got, and mind you, like I said, it was the end of October. Or was it the end of... Yeah, it was the end of October. So I went ahead and picked this palette up. The end of October ended a contract for me in nursing, and I was going to be starting a new contract in November in another town, which meant I was going to have to move there for half the week and adjust to a new charting system and new employees and just get settled in. And so I was feeling a little stressed out and watching YouTube like I frequently do. I like to record videos, and I love even more to watch other YouTubers. So I was watching Fumi DeSalvo review the Juvia's Place Saharan, what is it, the Saharan 2 palette, the one with the ladies wearing the hijab. And I loved the way that palette looked, and I'd been eyeballing it for a while once it released from the company, but I never felt compelled to go buy it. But once I saw her video, I knew that I wanted it. Well, feeling stressed out as I was, I thought I'm going to go to Ulta and see if they have that palette there, and if they do, I'm going to pick that palette up. And I know it's kind of just a week after I've gotten the ABH2 palette, and it's going to make it so I'm not going to be able to really buy many more palettes on Black Friday. I'll just get the one, and then I think I would have still been able to get 1 or 2 palettes on Black Friday. So here is the palette, if you haven't already seen the Saharan 2 from Juvia's Place, and this is what it looks like on the inside. I love the shade here and this one here, and I thought this looked like one of the more cohesive Juvia's Place palettes to work with. I could instantly see how I could put a look together using just this palette by itself. So I swatched it, fell in love with it, stuck that one in my bag in Ulta. Well, they had all the Juvia's Place palettes available at Ulta except for the Nomad palette at that time. So I had been eyeballing the Warrior 3 palette online because it had just released in the fall, and I thought, I'm not going to get that palette. I don't really want it. I don't see what I would do with it. And then I saw it in the store, so of course this one in the bag also. And this is the Saharan, not Saharan, but the Warrior 3 palette, which to me, I kind of don't get why they named it the Warrior 3 palette. I guess these are more of the warrior tones for some of the places in Africa, and that's why they went ahead and did that, because this palette looked like the Zulu palette to me. It looked like a Zulu 2 palette. But I swatched it, I like the colors, and what it really was the blues in here. I love the blues and the silvers, and this matte blue shade I liked a lot. And then some of these bright neon shades, they were a little muted and not like the primary looking neon shades. They're so muted, and that made me like this palette a lot. So I stuck this one in the bag. And of course, since I wondered why they named this the Warrior 3 instead of the Zulu 2, that meant I had to look at the Zulu 2 palette some more. So guess what went in the bag? The Zulu 2 palette. And this one was one that I constantly passed on and didn't really want, because these bright shades in here do look really close to primary. I love bright, vivid colors, but I like them to be a little more muted. I'm not really that big of a fan of primary colors, and I thought this orange and the yellow in here and the purple looked pretty primary, and it didn't really excite me that much. Well, what made me get this palette is swatching this one here. I think out of all the palettes I have, there may be one other Juvia's Place palette that I have, but this peach has so much pink in it that it really stays a pure peach color on my skin. And I hadn't been able to find that with any other palette, so of course I had to put this one in the bag. Now, mind you, I'm well aware that I'm over all the palettes that I'm supposed to have for the year. I think this put me over even by 1. I'm not sure. I lost track of it. I definitely wasn't going to be able to buy anything else for Black Friday, which that didn't really matter because this was at the beginning of November. I can remember thinking, you shouldn't be buying all these palettes in 1 month, even if you do have them available to you, even if you just got the 2 of them and that ended it for the year. You know you're going to want more palettes during the sale with being on your low buy, and it's going to make you go over. And I can remember making a conscious thought, I really don't care. I work really hard. I'm stressed out right now. This is something that I really want, these palettes, so I'm going to buy the palettes. So I bought the palettes. Well, that kind of ended whether or not I was going to stick to the low buy, because I decided, I can't remember, maybe it was towards the end of November. I know in November I decided I was still going to do some of the sales and get the palettes that I've been wanting throughout the year. So since I'd kind of blown it with the palettes, I went ahead and bought the palettes that I knew that I wanted. I didn't really go over and buy any more palettes that I wasn't planning on buying, just the stuff that I really knew I wanted. And I was a little conflicted over whether or not I wanted that ABH3 palette, because I'd seen the swatches of it and it didn't look that exciting to me. And I knew that some of these palettes were supposedly going to be limited edition. Why, I don't understand why ABH, and first of all, I don't even understand why they didn't just release them as the Norvina collection to begin with, which I would have been more than happy to support, because I thought the releases of all that collection was very confusing. So I took my time and took months in between purchasing palettes, but I was really on the fence as to whether or not I wanted the second one, because I didn't think it looked very cohesive and I wasn't sure what I would do with it, and I didn't really care all that much for the swatches that I saw on other people. Well, there was some other way that I was able to get a sale on the Norvina palette, the Norvina 3, and I can't remember how much off it was, but I ended up picking that up, and I can't remember if it was the very end of November or the beginning of December. Everything started to run together, but I paid $54 for this one also, and I ordered it directly from the ABH website. Oh, yep, I ordered it during the Black Friday sale, because they had this one to where I was able to get it for $54. So I did order this palette, which was something that wasn't really an impulse buy. I debated from the time it was released, September 26th, whether or not I really wanted this palette and was going to get it. So it was 2 months of figuring out whether or not I wanted this one. And like I said, I did go ahead and order mainly just stuff from ColourPop, and then a couple palettes from Revolution that I'd really been wanting. But I only got, I did end up with 2 impulse palettes. One of them I ordered, it was a NYX palette, and I will post a picture of that palette. I guess it'd be, no, post it up here. The NYX palette that I ordered and went ahead and returned to Ulta once I got it, realized I didn't want it, I didn't like it. The colors that were in there that I thought that I was already interested in came in this, what is this, Around the World palette, and it was this green shade here. That was one of the main things, but whatever. The palette just looked like a mini edition of this palette, and I like this palette a lot better, so I took that back. And the other palette that I purchased that was kind of an impulse buy is a Revolution palette, and I will post that one there. It's the Courage palette, and I haven't opened it, or well, I've opened it and I've shown you guys what the palette looks like on the inside in a haul. And if you hadn't seen that December haul, I'll post a link to it up there and show you the rest of the stuff I got. But I haven't taken the plastic covering off of it or swatched it or anything. And once I've really looked at the palette, I don't think it is something that I want, and I think that I'm going to go ahead and return it also. So for the year, I did make 2 impulse buys, and I'd say the Jackie Aina palette was a little bit of an impulse buy also, because that palette just came out of nowhere. And I did buy it in the same month that I bought the Huda Beauty Topaz palette. So I will say that was an impulse buy. It's one that I don't regret, unlike the other 2, the NYX palette and the Revolution Courage palette that I'm going to take back. But I failed at the low buy, and I have blushes also included on the low buy. I decided that I wasn't going to take in any more blushes with the low buy. And At the end of the year, I think it was on New Year's Eve, I was scared I was going to miss a ColourPop sale, and there was 2 blush shades that I wanted from them that I really did not have in my collection at all. It was something that I didn't have, and I wanted to wait till after the first of the new year and not go ahead and get those, but I didn't want to pay full price for them, so I did go ahead and order those 2. So I did totally fail at the low buy at the very last on New Year's Eve because of being afraid of missing out on the sale. I broke down and bought the blushes when I wasn't supposed to buy any blushes for the year. That being said, what do I think about how the low buy went and the fact that I failed at it? Well, I have some mixed feelings about it. You know, I'm disappointed that I didn't stick with it a little bit, but I did learn some valuable lessons about my shopping habit, and I did totally curb my intake of palettes, what I typically buy in a year. And like I said, the Black Friday sale stuff that I did pick up was ColourPop, and I'm going to be within the next week or so posting that ColourPop haul so you guys can see the stuff that I got from ColourPop at the end of the year. And a lot of that stuff I have been waiting since it released over the summer and even before that to buy it. So I did learn some delayed gratification this year, and some of the palettes that I chose to buy during the Christmas sale were palettes that I'd wanted previously the year before, and I had held out on those palettes. One of them, and I've already shown it to you in the haul if you've seen that haul, but it is a Revolution palette. It's the S'mores palette, and that palette in 2018, it was in their chocolates vault, and I wanted that palette so bad, but I refused to order the entire vault to get the palette. So I practiced the delayed gratification and didn't buy it until the month of December. So I was proud of myself for that. And it was not an impulse buy. That was something that I truly planned on buying. So I learned how to slow my purchases down and to stop and wait 2 to 3 months a lot of times before I picked up a particular palette. I didn't buy it when it first released, which I used to do all the time. If I thought something was pretty and I really wanted it, I would go and buy it right then immediately. Well, there's several palettes that did pop up over the year 2019 that I thought that way about, and because I didn't go out and buy it right away like I typically would, a lot of those palettes I didn't even end up with, because the ABH Riviera palette was a palette that I thought was beautiful. And for the entire time that Ulta carried it in the ABH section, there wasn't a time that I didn't go into Ulta and look at that palette and swatch it. But I never purchased it and came home with it. So I'm really proud of myself for not doing that, because any other time I would have just thought, this is an ABH palette. And I almost want to laugh saying this now, but at that time when the Riviera palette released, ABH was still doing their releases spread out, and they only did 1 to 2 palettes a year, so their palettes were really special to get their hands on. And I knew that one was going to be a limited edition one, and that's the first time I'd really seen them do a colorful palette like that with those type of bright, vivid colors. So I would swatch it, and I would constantly leave without it. There was something about some of the metallic shades that I wasn't quite sure it'd be that great for the looks that I like to create, the way I like the colors to look on me. So I decided to leave it. And I'm happy I did that, because I ended up with so many ABH palettes with more colors in them towards the end of the year, which I would have never known that all these releases were coming out. But I practice a lot of restraint, and that's just an example of one company. That doesn't include all the other ones that I didn't buy, things that I didn't get. So I was really proud of myself for that. I did learn that sometimes the impulse buying, if I'm stressed out, and I wouldn't really say that these 3 Juvia's Place palettes were impulse buys. I had this one, the Zulu palette, for sure, because I had told myself I was not going to buy this. And I'd seen it in Ulta before and walked past it. Never was tempted to even swatch it. So had it not been the impulse buy, I never would have swatched that peach shade and known that it was like the perfect color that I had been looking for. So that one I would say was an impulse buy. But the Saharan palette, the Saharan 2 palette, I'd been thinking about it. The Warrior 3 palette, I'd been looking at that and I'd been thinking about it. I had decided no, that I wasn't going to get it. So I guess you could say that was an impulse buy, because once I saw it, that's when I went ahead and got it. After swatching the blues and liking the color, that's when I went ahead and bought it. So what I did learn about the stress shopping is, from now on, taking into the year 2020 and from here on out, if I'm stressed out or feeling upset and think that there's a product that I've wanted for a while really bad and I'll go get that one product, I'm not going to be doing that, because I don't want to train my brain to think that shopping and buying makeup and things like that, if I feel bad, like that's a thing that's going to make me feel better. I don't want shopping associated with that as a coping mechanism. For me, I don't think that's a healthy thing. So that's something that I did get to learn and put the brakes on. And I'm not really sure how many times in the past I've bought stuff because I felt stressed out. This was the first year that I've actually monitored my buying habits with things and not just bought it because I wanted it. So that was an interesting thing to learn. That only happened the one time. So now I can pump my brakes on that and decide not to purchase when I'm in that mode. Because moving forward, I learned a lot from this past year's low buy. And for 2020, I am not going to be on a low buy. As of now, I don't feel like I need one. I feel like I've really assessed and slowed down on my buying patterns, and also looked through my collection so much that I know what I have now. I've spent more time in my collection. I don't want to get too much into that because I'm going to do a separate video on how I was successful up until the end of the year with the low buy and things to help you slow down if you're a person that wants to cut back on how much you're spending on makeup. I'm going to do a total separate video on that, so I won't get into it, but I'm not going to do that for the year 2020, and a lot of it is based on the content that I want to create for you guys. A lot of the reasons why I did the low buy initially was because I was taking in so much product and I wasn't being consistent with my recording schedule, so I ended up with a lot of makeup that I wasn't really using to review or give first impressions of on YouTube. I feel as a content creator, it's a little different for me than it is for someone that has a regular makeup collection and they're not reviewing things for other people or giving first impressions. I'm always going to have a larger makeup collection and going to purchase probably more than the average person, because I'm bringing content to you guys of things that I'm interested in and also things that you as my viewers and subscribers want to see. So it's going to be a little bigger. A lot of the impulse buying and just jumping off and buying everything that comes out because it's a new release, I feel like that's going to slow down. But if I feel like at any point I'm out of control with my spending and buying this year, I will put myself on a low buy. But as of now, no, I don't think that I will be doing that. I did, like I said, learn so much from the low buy, and I'm so happy that I did it, and can't wait to make the video of suggestions of things that other people can do to help curb their spending and a different way to look at makeup, so that you really like the makeup collection you have and you find that it serves you instead of your makeup collection running you. Because what I'm hearing from a lot of the beauty community is something that nobody really spoke about, 2-3 years ago. People love the new releases and getting all the new products, and it was fun having a nice makeup collection. But I feel like it got to the point with so many fast releases, especially in the year 2019. I feel like the makeup companies heard us when we said we were going to curb our spending habits and we were going on low buys and we weren't going to continue to buy the way we had been buying in the past. And their response to that was, we will pump out more products and overload them with things and basically flood the makeup industry with products to try to get the dollar from us. Well, before that, in 2018, when people had come to that conclusion, it seemed like a lot of people were feeling that their makeup collections were so massively out of control that they were being run by their makeup collection instead of finding joy and having fun with it and the products serving them. So I think it's really important as an influencer, somebody creating content, to try as much as I can to not only bring you the things that I think are awesome for your collection or would be the best product to have in a collection, but to also show you how to get the most out of a palette, how to taper and customize your makeup collection so that it serves you and it helps you look the best instead of just having a bunch of products that you're never going to lay a hand to. So that is my goal and focus for the year of 2020, is to do that for you guys and to still come with good content, but everything's not going to be brand spanking new. Like, I cannot get a handle on this idea of everything's only exciting as long as it's a brand new release. If it's been out for a while, it's old news and it's not exciting. That is crazy to me. And there are so many looks that can be created with one individual palette. And I plan to be doing that instead of just giving a first impression of things and never getting back to a palette. So you can expect a lot of, and it just sounds so crazy to me that some of the palettes that I would be saying are a throwback palette are palettes that aren't even a year old, but at this point, the way things have been going, it feels like they're a throwback palette. So there will be lots of videos of some of those palettes so you guys can learn how to use them more and get the most use out of them. So I hope that this video of my 2019 update on the low buy, even though I didn't succeed, still helped you moving forward. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. You're also going to want to hit the notification bell next to the subscribe button so YouTube notifies you every time I upload a new video. I'll see you guys soon.